Hand cannons in Destiny 2 are about to receive one of the biggest buffs they have ever received in Destiny history, which will definitely make the hand cannons one of the best weapons to use in PvE. Just a few weeks ago, Bungie stated that hand cannons are going to be getting a buff in the near future with an increase in reload speed, a 20% damage increase to miners or red bars, and a 75% damage boost to mages or orange bars. Now this information was just teased, however, just a couple days ago in the state of the game, Bungie announced that the hand cannons were getting this buff in Season 22, which is just a couple weeks away. So in today's video, I want to cover 10 hand cannons that are amazing right now, and next season they're going to be even better. So this is your time to either get these or pull them out from your dusty old vault. Now the first weapon that I want to cover is the exotic hand cannon Crimson. Now this hand cannon overall by itself isn't really that good. However, when you pair this with the Hunter's exotic Lucky Pants, this is by far one of the best weapons to use to kill champions in a matter of seconds. The Lucky Pants build right now, how it stands, is absolutely broken, and you can kill champions that are way above your light level in a matter of 2 to 3 seconds. Now if you didn't know, champions actually fall under the category of mages, so next season this build is going to do 75% more damage, which I can't even fathom how good this build is going to be. It will be the best champion killing method in the game by far, full stop. I've been having a lot of fun with the Lucky Pants build, so if you haven't tried it out, make sure to give it a go. It's fairly simple to set up and it's really easy, and you can do it all by yourself with no other help from any other guardians. I'm pretty keen to see what some guardians can do with a 6 stack of Lucky Pants, but we'll have to wait and see next season. Next on the list is the Nation of Beasts. Now this weapon, and alongside all of the other Last Wish weapons, got a huge buff with coming into Season 21, being that you can now craft them and they got some new fancy perks. As it stands right now, you can craft this hand cannon with Dragonfly and Vault Shot, making it completely absurd for that mid-game activity when you're killing all of your red bars. It ties in very well with all of your arc builds, it does a lot of damage, and it's really fun to use. Now like I said earlier, this weapon is obtainable through Last Wish and you can craft it. So if you haven't been farming Last Wish, make sure you get onto that and try and get some of these weapons. Now another hand cannon that has been left behind and sort of forgotten about is the ZAOULI'S Bane from the Kingsfall raid. Now it's pretty obvious as to why this weapon didn't get much traction. It's because SMGs just ruled the mid-game meta. However, with this weapon being craftable and it can roll with explosive payload and incandescent, with a 20% damage buff coming next season, there's no reason not to try this one out. This one is pretty fun, however the only downside to this one is it feels like it takes absolutely forever to actually reload the hand cannon. So in order to make this hand cannon really work, you're going to want to have a reload masterwork, alongside some more reloading perks, but other than that, it's still a really solid hand cannon, and if you prefer incandescent over Vault Shot, this is your go-to weapon. Now this wouldn't be a PvE hand cannon video if I didn't include the Sunshot. The Sunshot is one of Destiny 2's oldest exotics, coming out in Season 1. Now this weapon has always been solid in both PvE and PvP, with its exotic perk Sunburn, which is basically just explosive payload, and its other exotic perk Sunblast, which when you kill enemies, they're going to explode in a huge solar burst. Now obviously this hand cannon will receive a 20% damage buff to red bars and a 75% damage buff to mages. However, we don't know if this buff is going to count for the exotic perk, being that it has explosive payload, and also if the explosion after you kill an enemy will also get the damage buff. But whether it does or if it doesn't get this buff, it is still a really solid hand cannon to use. We'll have to wait and see next season, but just like the Graviton Lance, they did make a separate section saying that its exotic perk will not get the damage buff that the Graviton Lance did, but who knows, this weapon might be completely overpowered and they might have to make a mid-season patch. Up next, we have the Fatebringer. Now I'm not sure about you Guardians watching this video, but me personally, I remember when the Fatebringer was the only weapon that everyone used in Destiny 1, and that was a lot of fun. It was literally a disadvantage if you weren't using the Fatebringer, it was just that good, and maybe next season this could be coming back. As we all know, the Fatebringer drops from the Vault of Glass raid, and if you do the Master version, you are guaranteed the TIMELOST version, which is also guaranteed the God Roll. This God Roll is explosive payload and Firefly. An insane combination of perks, it does a lot of damage. However, if you're not the biggest fan of Firefly and you feel like you're missing a lot of headshots, you can swap this one out for Frenzy, which will just overall boost your damage. Having both explosive payload and Frenzy to do bonus damage, alongside the buff that is coming next season, this weapon is going to do a lot of damage. Up next, we have the exotic hand cannon Lumina, which is one of the best hand cannons in the game. The way this weapon works is whenever you get kills, it's going to create a little noble deed that you go and collect, collect. Once you've collected this noble deed, you can then hip fire this noble deed towards your teammates, and it's going to heal them and give them a 35% damage buff. This damage buff will also apply to you, so you both get a free 35% damage buff every time you kill enemies. Unfortunately, this weapon isn't really used at the moment because it's just a kinetic weapon and it feels like it just doesn't do enough damage. But next season, with the weapon damage buff it's getting, it could be a really good weapon to use in all of your activities. So if your Lumina's been sitting in your vault for years, maybe pull it out and give it a go next season. Next on the list, we have the ERIANA'S Luna, which drops from the Grasp of Avarice dungeon. Now I'm putting this hand cannon on the list because it is one of the few hand cannons that can actually roll with headstone. It's actually one of the very few weapons in the game that can roll with headstone, as it's a pretty rare perk. The way headstone works is basically whenever you get a critical headshot kill, it's going to spawn a stasis crystal, which you can do whatever you need to do with it with all of your stasis builds. I'm not the biggest fan of stasis and I don't really use it. However, I know there is a lot of stasis builds out there that revolve around getting stasis crystals and breaking them, and having the ability to spawn in these whenever you need is pretty good, so that's why I wanted to add the ERIANA'S Luna to this list. On top of this, it's really good for PvP, so a great perk could be something like rangefinder and kill clip, or rangefinder moving target. Next on the list, we have the Posterity from the Deepstone Crypt raid. Yet another hand cannon that felt like it was left behind when it was released. Now the Posterity is very similar to the Nation of Beasts. It can roll with Vault Shot and Frenzy. These two perks combined together can do some serious work, and this one is also craftable, so you can get this from farming the Deepstone Crypt raid. For me personally, I prefer the Nation of Beasts, but I know a lot of Guardians don't really like the way that one feels, so the Posterity is a similar version. This weapon can also roll with Reconstruction, meaning you never have to reload this weapon. You can dump your mag, put it away, and next time you pull it out, it's going to have the full mag reloaded. There's a lot of perk options for this gun, so if you haven't got one, maybe try and farm one out. Up next, we have the ERIANA'S Vow. Now the ERIANA'S used to be one of the best weapons to take down anti-barrier champions. However, with recent times, everyone's been leaning towards just using the Wish Ender. This weapon does have built-in intrinsic anti-barrier, meaning you don't have to worry about putting any mods on for it. The first shot of the magazine will also do bonus damage, and with a hefty 75% damage buff coming next season, this weapon could definitely be re-rolled back into the meta. This weapon also has a catalyst which increases its magazine size and will also give it auto-loading holster. So with a huge damage buff coming next season, there is no reason not to give this a try when killing all of your anti-barrier champions in your Grandmaster Nightfalls. Now the final weapon on this list is the EPOCHAL integration. Now I remember this hand cannon being one of the most hyped up weapons before Lightfall even dropped, and people were wondering where this weapon was, and Bungie randomly dropped it mid-season 21. Now I feel as though this hand cannon was already set to be at a disadvantage. It was so hyped up and everyone was ready for this hand cannon to be absolutely absurd. And then when we finally got it, everyone was sort of disappointed and weren't as hyped as they were before. So everyone just sort of got it and then put it away in their vault. But this hand cannon is actually pretty good. It's a fixed roll and it has 4 different perks you can choose from: Keep Away or Stats for All, and in the second column you can choose Eye of the Storm or Incandescent. So if you're going to be using it in PvE, I recommend using Stats for All and Incandescent. This is pretty good because every now and then you're going to get bonus handling, stability, reload, and range alongside the Incandescent perk, which is going to deal all of your damage. It is by far one of the prettiest looking guns in the game. Bungie did a really good job at designing this one. It's sort of sad it sort of just fell off. However, next season with a 20% buff to red bars and 75 to mages, this weapon could pack a punch, so I recommend getting it if you haven't got it already. But anyway, Guardians, that will wrap up the list right there. Those are 10 hand cannons that I recommend you Guardians look out for next season with this amazing hand cannon buff coming. The submachine guns have been reigning top dogs for too long, and it's time for something else to take the top spot, and hopefully that can be hand cannons next season. So if you haven't got any of these hand cannons just yet, you've got a few weeks before the season ends to try and grab some of these. But anyway, Guardians, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to drop a like and a subscribe down below. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.